In this episode, I'm going to go over the best motivation to have as an athlete and how you can use motivation to build a strong mindset in sports. Hey there, I'm Eli Straw, a mental performance coach who works with athletes from around the world on building a stronger mental game. Now, motivation gives us that drive to train hard, to give effort during games, and to bounce back from setbacks and to rebound from bad games. And so it's important to your mental game to have strong control over this motivation. Now, the two most common types of motivation that we can have is intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation means that you are driven by the joy and just simply the act of doing whatever it is that you're doing. Whereas extrinsic motivation means we are driven by the achievement of something. So in sports terms, intrinsic motivation will mean that you get a lot of satisfaction and joy out of training and playing the game. Extrinsic motivation means that you're driven by stats, winning the game, getting an award, making it to the next level, so more of these outcome-based goals. Now, I think both motivation types can be useful. And within my work, I've seen athletes who are more intrinsically motivated, and I've seen athletes who are more extrinsically motivated. So it doesn't really matter which type of motivation you lean toward, as much as you understanding which type of motivation works the best for you. So that's what we're really identifying within this video and within this episode. It's which type of motivation do you need to have to get the best out of yourself as an athlete. An example of intrinsic motivation is a baseball player that I worked with who was driven by just practicing and playing the game. He found a lot of satisfaction in getting up every day, going to the batting cage, working on his ground ball drills, and then he got a lot of satisfaction out of simply playing. For him, it became a detriment to his performance when he focused on extrinsic motivation. When he got caught up in his stats, winning the game, moving up in the lineup, making it to the next level. Those were all things that he wanted, but when he focused on them and used them primarily as a reason to train and to play, this is where he experienced anxiety and fear. So we worked together to get him to really accept and own how intrinsically motivated he was, focus primarily on the joy and the satisfaction he got when playing and when practicing, and let go of these different outcomes and results and just allow them to happen. Another example, though, is of a basketball player I worked with who was very extrinsically motivated. Now, of course, she enjoyed playing, she enjoyed training, but for her, she found her drive in wanting to prove other people wrong, wanting to get a certain amount of points each game. And so I had her focus on that, and when she focused on that, she gave more effort during the game. So in both of those examples, we see athletes training hard, and we see them giving effort during games, which is what we want. And for both of them, they were able to bounce back from bad games, bounce back from setbacks, because they understood their motivation type. So again, it's not that there is one universal motivation that all athletes need, whether it's winning or whether it's enjoying the game. It's about you and what personally motivates you and drives you and owning that. So to help you identify what motivation type or style is best for you, I want to run through an exercise with you where we're going to identify what truly drives you. In other words, we're going to find your why for playing. Now to do this, I'm going to have you answer a couple different questions, and then this will finish with us creating what's known as a motivation statement or a why statement. So the first question I want you to think about is, why do you play your game? What's the reason you play your sport? Is it to impress other people? Is it because you just love the act of playing? When I think back to playing baseball as a high schooler and a college athlete, I loved just fielding ground balls. I got so much satisfaction out of that. I was much more intrinsically motivated, and for me, being extrinsically motivated, just like that other baseball player I mentioned earlier, led to a lot of stress and fear. But maybe you really enjoy proving other people wrong. You find a lot of satisfaction in winning, like that, that feeling of being the one that helped your team win, that drives you. So I want you to answer that question, and you can answer it in a sentence. You can answer it in, a paragraph. Just let your mind wander and think about, why do you enjoy playing your game? What is the real reason that you play? The next question I want you to ask yourself is, what distracts you when you think about it when you play? This is going to help us identify what's probably not going to be your motivation style, right? So maybe, like if you're like myself, maybe you say that what distracts me is thinking about having to get a certain stat line or thinking about proving other people wrong. Or maybe you say that what distracts me is just focusing on having fun because I end up goofing off too much. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. I just want you to explore what distracts you when you think about it during a game. Now, the third question I want you to ask yourself is, what do you typically think about or focus on when you're struggling during a tough workout? What is it that's going to push you past that point where you want to stop? What do you need to tell yourself? What do you remind yourself of? And that's going to help us identify what pushes you and drives you when you're facing challenges. So again, explore that a little bit, write that down, and try to come up with and think about what you use to motivate yourself when you're struggling or when you're going through a tough workout. Now that you've answered those questions, I want you to read back over your answers. I want you to think about it a little bit more. And then I want you to summarize everything that you wrote and everything you've thought about into one simple sentence. An example of a motivation statement or a why statement would be, my why is to push myself and see how much I can improve and enjoy the game while I do so. Or another example would be, my why for playing is to prove other people wrong and to win as much as possible. All right, so come up with a simple why statement for yourself. Now that you have that written out, you've identified what is the best motivation statement and motivation style for yourself as an athlete. So you want to read that over every single day, and especially read it before games to get you into that right mindset. Now, there are two other things I want to mention in relation to this idea of building motivation as an athlete. And the first thing is using outcome goals to drive you to focus on the process of your game. And this is going to apply no matter what motivation style you have. It's a way for us to really leverage your motivation style if you're more extrinsically motivated, and it's going to help us work through any fear or anxiety you experience if you are more intrinsically motivated. So whenever I'm working with an athlete, whether they are extrinsically or intrinsically motivated, and we talk about the outcome, we always discuss how the outcome is a huge distraction for us as athletes if we get stuck thinking about it, but it is a strong motivator if we can think about the outcome we want to achieve, and then we redirect our attention onto the process and we think about, okay, I want to win this game, so what do I need to do on a moment-by-moment basis to give myself the greatest chance of winning the game or getting the outcome that I want? So we want to see outcome goals as motivators to drive our attention back onto the process. This is probably something you do naturally if you are more extrinsically motivated. But if you find that these outcome goals and extrinsic motivators tend to distract you or lead to more anxiety and fear, this is a strong solution to push past that anxiety and fear that you play with. Because we're not getting stuck just thinking and thinking and thinking about the outcome. We think, okay, this is an outcome I want to get or I want to avoid that. Now I'm going to use that to pull my attention back into the present, to motivate me to train really hard, to focus in the present moment, and to do what I need to do to either achieve or to avoid that outcome. So that's how we use outcome goals as motivation to refocus ourselves back onto the process of our game. And the second thing I want to mention about motivation is that once you identify what your motivation style is and what really motivates you as an athlete, and you craft that why statement, we want to then shift our attention more onto building habits. So motivation is great, but in all honesty, we don't always feel motivated. Nobody always feels motivated. Even when you identify what your motivation style is, the motivation will wane at times, and we have to figure out how we push past that. And so if we focus in the short term on using motivation to build good habits within our game, then when we come to those days when we are struggling to find motivation, our motivation statement, our why statement, it's not really pushing us in the same way it does other days. We don't have to worry about struggling as much because we've used that motivation already to build habits. So for example, if I use my motivation to push me to follow a strict training plan day in and day out, if I do that over the course of weeks and months, when I come to a day where I don't really want to train, I don't have much motivation, because I've stuck to that training plan for so long, it's likely that it's become a habit. The same thing is true when it comes to a game. If you have built the habit through motivation of focusing on the process and giving full effort, for example, it's likely that even on the days when you're not fully motivated, you'll still play in the way you've been playing because that's become a habit. So we want to use motivation to build habits because we have to understand that we're human and there will be days where we're not quite as motivated. So I hope this episode helped you identify what your motivation style is as an athlete. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. And if you are interested in one-on-one mental performance coaching, I've put a link to learn more about that in the description below as well. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and I wish you the best of success in all that you do.